Hello, my name is Sean Bowdle, and today I'm going to be showing you how I set up 3 real quick Crested Gecko enclosures for the 3 new Crested Geckos that I got in the last video. So you can go watch that. But first off, I'm going to be rehoming 3 of the 6 Crested Geckos that I got, because that was kind of the deal originally, that I would get them and then I would rehome 3 of them to Shelled Reptiles. I kind of explained that more. Shelled Reptiles is another YouTuber. Go check him out, definitely. He set up some pretty cool terrariums for the ones that I got to him, and also some like a lot of other animals that I don't even know about. So by that I mean like tortoises. I haven't dealt with tortoises. So I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get this started. To start off, I use some recycled peanut butter jars. Now I always keep these just in case. I used to sell dubia roaches, so I'd always keep them for that, but I still keep them just in case I go herping or something, or as well something like this, like I need to transport a small animal, or some dirt. So Shelled Reptiles also asked me for some soil that had isopods in it, some like springtails and stuff. So I gave him some. He was willing to buy some, but I have a ton of isopods in my iguanas enclosure. So what I did is I just scooped out a bunch of 2 big peanut butter jars full of soil from my iguanas enclosure, and I was actually removing a lot of the soil anyway, which you'll see that in other videos. But I made sure he got lots of big isopods and everything, so then he could seed his terrariums with them. So after I sold the got the 3 geckos to him, I had to kind of move around the stuff in my quarantine setup here. So like I said, I moved 3 of them, and now I set up a couple different tanks for them there, and then for a few days they stayed in that, and then I moved them into terrariums. First, I started off with the larger male, the one that is tailless. Now I have these 2 new plants real quick. These are like actual Philodendron. Pothos isn't actually a Philodendron, I don't think. So I'm just gonna plant these here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and go get Garfunkel. I'd like to thank my friend Michael for getting these for me for Christmas. I got a bunch of these plants, and I'll be putting them in both this terrarium as well as future terrariums, and all 3 of the setups that I'll be doing in this video. But I thought this was a pretty easy, simple setup for this Crested Gecko. Garfunkel lost his tail. I don't know when, but he's kind of spastic right now. He isn't, because I kind of just woke him up. But generally he'll run like. I know you guys haven't seen, but when I first got the iguana, he was really spastic. So if you put the hand in his cage, he'd run back and forth from the side to side, like hit his face on the glass. That's what Garfunkel does, but Garfunkel is a Crested Gecko, and in my opinion, no Crested Geckos can ever be like too crazy to really handle, or at least I haven't met one yet, and Garfunkel's probably the craziest one I have. He's a male, and yeah, so he's not, if you hold him or if you mess around in his cage, generally he'll kind of run around pretty crazy. I don't think he's ever really been in a terrarium as far as I know, so this should be a new experience for him, but I'm sure he will enjoy it. And my plan is that I'll mate him to Darwin, who is actually a female apparently. So that's what my plan is with Garfunkel here, and he'll just sit on this stand for now, and he'll probably go, I'm just going to keep him in a 10-gallon just to kind of keep it simple for him, but I probably will move him into a bigger enclosure at some point. Next, I set up the smallest of the 3 new geckos, the female. Her name is Luna. And I just set her up in this small 5-gallon because, like I said, this will be temporary, and also just easier for her and I think, to make sure that she's eating and growing and doing everything. And she really doesn't seem to be like mine to be in the smaller type of setup. Once I was done with Luna's set up, then I started setting up Leonard, and he is the smaller of the two males. He's kind of grayish in coloration, and I set him up just in the same bioactive setup. In the background, you can actually see Garfunkel running around. He's a little bit more crazy, unlike Leonard. And yeah, this is a normal tropical substrate mix that I've made in past videos, and then I just used wood that I have collected. Here's what Leonard actually looks like. He is here eating Pangea gecko diet all on his own, which is pretty great. So since this video is about setting up these tanks, so these are basically recycled aquariums, and I mean that by they're all secondhand. Pretty much all the tanks that I have are secondhand. All of the tanks on this thing are secondhand. This I made myself out of, or we made ourselves out of old wood material. This is secondhand. Those two were secondhand. That was secondhand. Yeah, none of the enclosures in here I actually bought. So that kind of makes it cheaper. I think you could get one between $5 to $10 pretty easily, which surprisingly at a pet store it's more than that, which I don't know. I don't buy aquariums from pet stores, so their prices kind of seem absurd to me. All the decor in here, the hardscape, the wood, is actually from outside. So like these two things were from Florida, and then these two pieces are just well, one's bark and then the other one's just a stick. Now those two types of things I could get on our property here. We kind of live rurally. We have lots of trees and stuff outside, so just normal things that we can get. Also, we keep a wood burning stove. Rather, that's how we heat our house. So I get a lot of bark from the wood that we chop or whatever. So that's what I do there. So those types of things don't actually cost me any money, as well as the leaf litter. I just collect it outside. Now the plants, you could get like one big container of I have Garfunkel out right there. One big like thing of either Philodendron or pothos, which are really easy and propagate extremely easy. Like first of all, you could probably like find a friend or even like a grandparent or something that has like a pothos plant that you could just, you know, take two things off of, put them in your terrarium, real simple and easy. And then the soil, I did buy most of it. The sphagnum moss I had to buy obviously in Eco Earth, and then you're gonna want something more than just those two things. Those two things I bought on Amazon, and they're like, they both kind of like expand when you get them, so I got them both in blocks, and you can get those pretty cheap, especially if you're gonna be setting up a couple of terrariums. But if you're not, even still, you can get them pretty cheap. And then the other soil I have in here is like mulch mixed in with, I think, charcoal as well, and just like normal topsoil. So that type of thing you can buy from, like, if you get like organic potting soil or something like that from a hardware store like Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that. Also very cheap. I think you could get like a huge bag of that for like $10, and you could probably use that on its own. So then the only real things that leaves that's kind of more expensive. Oh, by the way, what I was saying is, like, you get like a big thing of pothos or Philodendron for like around $15, and you just get like a ton of plants like that. Like that was that, as well as the other ones. All the plants I planted in the terrariums, or all these plants anyway, were like under $15. And then the only thing that really leaves that is actually what I'd consider expensive. Here, I'm gonna move him real quick. I don't know, with other geckos, they tend to poop on things when they're out, so I'm gonna put him back into his thing. But I can't really tell with him because he doesn't have a tail, so you wouldn't put it up when you'd go to poop. Anyway, I don't want to poop on my bed. Two things that leaves are bioactivity and drainage layer. Now, clay balls are expensive. Like a big bag is like $30. I'd say that's pretty expensive, especially if you're setting up a small terrarium like this. So even if you have like a small tank like this or that, you're not that's a 20 gallon and a 30 gallon. You're not going to need, and you're not going to move it a lot, unlike this one, which I do move a lot. Then you could use rocks even. Now it's going to make it really heavy. Now this one actually has some rocks in the bottom as kind of a drainage layer, not really, because there's not enough to like really make it a drainage layer. You can use that. You can use egg crate or other things, but rocks would be pretty cheap, I think, as well. But that's not completely necessary in my opinion. I've had some really, really good terrariums like this one that don't actually have drainage layers. Now they do improve terrariums a lot, and I think it helps the plants on the bottom, or basically all the plants, do a lot better. But I think you can definitely get away without having a drainage layer, and this is actually the longest, like the terrarium that I think I've kind of had set up the longest. Also the iguana's cage doesn't currently have dirt in it, but the dirt that is that was in there is actually extremely bioactive and was really, really successful until I took it out. And isopods and like worms and stuff. Now you can get earthworms; those are fine to put in your terrariums. But like isopods, those are expensive. There's nothing to like the fact that they're bugs. They're just like you're paying so much for just like a couple of insects. I mean, they breed insane. Like all of my terrariums are seeded with one. I bought one thing of like, it said at least like 7 adults, and now there's hundreds, if not thousands, of isopods. So you only have to like pay it once, and they'll help tremendously. Like if Darwin here, this is Darwin. She is, you can see her tail right there. If she poops in here, like the next morning, it is just gone, like completely gone because of all the isopods. So that's definitely something that is important, but you really only have to pay that type of thing once. And I'd say to go look online and buy them there. I don't know where you'd get them. Maybe Craigslist or maybe Reptile Expos. Those are the two places that I'd guess that you could get them. I wouldn't even think a specialized reptile store would have them, but I haven't been to very many specialized reptile stores, so I'm not exactly sure. But those, like I was saying, it's like $7. So for like 20 something dollars, maybe even 30, depending on what kind you're getting of isopod, that's pretty expensive. And then Springtails, I think, also kind of expensive, but a lot less than isopods. So that gets you a pretty simple terrarium, in my opinion. And I think it's pretty easy for the crested geckos. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the crested geckos. First off, this is Garfunkel, as you've seen, and he is quite large. He actually weighs more than Leonard, and he doesn't have a tail. So I think it'll be about, I did some research, I think it'll be about 2 to 3 months before he's actually breeding size, and then I will try to mate him with Darwin. So again, he's pretty large, and he's in this smaller enclosure. And I really, just with crested geckos, I don't think they really use the full extent of like big enclosures. Now, I'm not positive of that. I mean, bigger is always better. 100%, in my opinion, bigger is always better. With reptiles, just go as big as you can, I think. Well, with some reptiles. The small, like really small species, sorry for this, the really small species like mourning geckos or something, yeah, go smaller. It's just going to be easier for them and everything. But even, I'm just kind of finding out that even with like crested geckos, like I feel like this isn't that small to them. Because, okay, now I could be wrong about this, because all I see is them hiding. Because they hide during the day, come out at dusk and dawn, they're crepuscular. So even into the nighttime, they'll spend a lot more time out. But I think that this isn't that bad, and it's really easy for them to find the food. And I think that's really an important thing here. So then over here, we have Leonard, and I think he's actually curled up under here. Yeah, he's curled up there. Now that's one thing about these. These are kind of more, these aren't very arboreal setup, so they're not fantastic for crested geckos. You know, it doesn't go very high, and that's something that I did achieve in this one. It's more arboreal, but even so, in my opinion, the idea of like an arboreal setup in captivity is kind of like wrong. So you think of arboreal, so think about maybe tree frogs. So tree frogs are, now I live in Ohio, so tree frogs are native here. So when you find a tree frog, you find it up in a tree, so it'd be an arboreal. But then if you set up a tree frog in captivity, you'd set it up in something like this. But when you think about that in the wild, you have the substrate right here, the dirt, and then it goes up about like 2 feet from there. That's really not arboreal. That's kind of just like a high rock. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of something interesting to think about. Even things that we consider arboreal, I don't really see as arboreal. Now, this is probably the more arboreal setup I've set up, and this is actually what they will be going into, but I'll get to that in a second. So I just realized I didn't really achieve the whole arboreal setup with these, but if you go check out Shelled Reptiles, he just set up a 10-gallon as an arboreal setup where the background is actually done with expanding foam and stuff. Now I've also done this. I actually made him a 20-gallon, made Shelled Reptiles a 20-gallon for one of his crested geckos. That was a very, very similar design. So you can go down as a past video not too long ago that I set that up. But here is Leonard, and he's also doing pretty well. Like I said, he's smaller. He's actually smaller in size than Garfunkel, and he will probably take about, I'm gonna say like 4 to 5 months until he's like breeding size. So he will be probably bred to Teddy here, which is right over there, and she is a little bit bigger than him, and she also has a bit of her tail that was lost. I think it may have happened in birth or something. I'm actually gonna move this real quick. There she is. As you can see, her tail's kind of nubbed, but I think it happened at birth or something, because as far as I'm concerned, crested geckos can't actually do that. They can't lose their tail anywhere but the like right by the cloaca. So she's also larger than he is, but she's very similar in size, and it'll take about the same time to get her to full breeding size, and then I'll probably breed them. So here is Luna, the other new one, and she's in this enclosure. Now I've been kind of experimenting with this. I have it very humid. Now I do have air holes, obviously. I probably need to put more in, but I've been kind of experimenting with having it very humid. Now there's nothing wrong with just a screen top, I don't think, if you have a proper substrate amount like this. I think if you for some reason keep them on paper towels, then a screen top isn't the best idea. I think a tub's the best with the paper towel method, but I only do that for quarantine. So I've been trying this more humid method just as kind of an idea, mainly with the plants, because I have a little bit of moss here, as you can see, and this is definitely too small for her. Like if you just look at the size here, it's just way too small, but she gets to her food just fine, and she eats and everything like that. And that's the thing, like with Darwin here, she's a really large gecko, like she's really big, and I'm gonna steer Luna so she doesn't. Okay, so she's really big, but she doesn't explore the entire enclosure, and I find that very strange. But maybe what I've seen personally will change once I put them into a bigger enclosure like this, that's much more arboreal, that they can like use. There'll be like trees in here and stuff. It'll be really cool. So Luna I'll probably also breed to Leonard, but all the terrariums seem to be doing well, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, like it down below. If you have any comments or concerns, put in the comments below, and if you want content, then subscribe. Definitely going to be doing this huge setup. I'll be taking these 3 terrariums down, also probably those 2 as well. So very exciting, very excited. This year I plan on breeding these guys. It's a completely new idea and project for me. So have a fantastic day. See you in the next video.